Remember in 1756 and 1700s, or 18th century in general, we were loading and firing in volleys, which meant all the men would load at once, all the men would fire at once, they would all reload, and they would all fire at once. So you're talking about in a company, 100 men firing simultaneously, typically in either 2 ranks, which is the way we are here, or 3 ranks, where the 3rd rank would be in the front and they would kneel when they fire. So you're talking about lead being fired the entire length of a person. In the case here, we're just going to fire in 2 ranks because of the number of soldiers I have. And what they're waiting for is they load. They're all loading. The corporal there on the front outside corner, when he turns around and goes back to the shoulder, everyone comes back to the shoulder. They're watching. He's watching to make sure they're ready, and they're watching him for their maneuver. Mate, ready? Freeze it! Fire! Prime it low! So the first thing you have to realize with these muskets, the musket is called the King's Arm. It is a 75 caliber smoothbore musket, which we would be firing a 69 caliber ball out of, so obviously that's smaller than the diameter of the barrel. There's no rifling in the barrel, so the round is actually just kind of bouncing in there, and then wherever it bounces last determines direction. So the men aren't truly aiming in the sense of what we think today. They're simply making sure the gun is leveled and pointed directly at the enemy and hoping the ball hits what they're pointing at. This gun has a long effective range, however, or a long kill range. The effective range is much shorter. You can't hit much of what you're shooting at past 100 yards, and you really ideally want your enemy within 30 yards. So it's a fairly close contact type of war. That's why when you see the battles and they march right out facing each other and just shoot into each other, that's why. The gun's not very accurate, so you need to get fairly close to your opponent. Make ready? Freeze it. Fire! Prime and low! Now obviously these men will here, what you would have is the average British soldier of the time could load and fire on average 3 rounds a minute or better. So that's fairly fast. These men, however, are far from average, so they are not firing that fast. All right? And we slow things down a bit for safety, as well as the fact that most of them are volunteers, so they don't have workman's comp, so it's better that we not blow anything off any of them. So we slow things down a bit. Ma'am, can I get you to move back this way? Unless, of course, you're, not you, the red. Unless, of course, you're French. And again, please feel free to move closer to the center. Well, send it out. Vive la France. Good there, Will. Mate, ready? Freeze it. Fire! Cease!
Ladies and gentlemen, the muskets we're firing today are the land pattern King's Arm. In later years it would earn the nickname the Brown Bess, but at this time period it was simply called the King's Arm or my firelock. It's a 75 caliber flintlock musket, and the flintlock part of the name refers to this piece of the musket right here. This is called the lock, and the lock incorporates a piece of flint. It's a very hard stone, and that flint is so hard that when it strikes a specially tempered piece of steel, it will shave pieces of that steel off. And the friction that results from that causes those little pieces of steel that are shaved off to ignite. We see it as sparks. And that's the ignition system for our musket. We fired from cartridge, which this big black bag I've got on my hip here is our cartridge box. So we keep all of our ammunition in. And the cartridges were issued very similar to this. It's a paper tube, the musket ball at the bottom, and enough powder for 1 shot. First step in loading the musket is to prime, which will pour just a little bit of powder right here in this pan. And there's a hole leading from that pan to the inside of the barrel. We'll put our main charge right down the barrel. take a rammer and make sure everything is seated at the bottom of the barrel. We want it right here, right next to that hole. So hopefully when we pull the trigger, that flint will strike that steel hammer, producing sparks. And those sparks will fall in that little bit of powder I poured in this pan, igniting it. And the flame hopefully will travel through that hole to the inside of the barrel where our main charge is.
Big bayonet.
As I said, fall from average.
Folks, anyone have any questions about the musket? Yeah. About 11 pounds. All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.